There are many different types of preventing and countering violent extremism programs. Preventing violent extremism usually starts at a very early stage, so-called early intervention or awareness-raising programs or campaigns. They try to help build some form of resistance against the push and pull factors leading some individuals toward violent extremism. Then there are more advanced programs that are usually part of the so-called countering violent extremism sphere. Sometimes there are so-called de-radicalization programs addressing people who have already advanced a lot on the radicalization pathway. Some focus on prison-based reintegration, rehabilitation work. Some conduct family counseling with family members of extremists or radicalized individuals. So you can see that there's a large variety of programs across the world. It is important to show that the resources that are poured into countering violent extremism or preventing violent extremism programs are not just wasted, because the resources, the financial resources, could be spent to, for example, support statutory, non-statutory services, mental health services, education, and other forms of services that might have similar results. We also need to understand that these programs, by definition, work with a target group, a population that might be highly dangerous. So we need to find ways to measure how these programs are actually performing, if they are effective, if they are not effective, how they use their resources, are they achieving the goals. Now, this is very, very hard to measure. It is simply impossible to hook somebody up to a machine and measure the degree of radicalization they still have, or to measure their resistance against extremist narratives, for example. And in terms of the later stage CVE programs, for example, de-radicalization programs, scientifically speaking, we are trying to prove a negative, a non-existing fact. For example, we are trying to prove the causal link between an intervention and a person not doing something, not committing an act of terrorism, not going back to the extremist environment, not speaking out as an extremist, or not using extremist behavior, for example. Now, scientifically speaking, this is extremely difficult because there are always many other potential reasons for that behavioral change or for that act not happening. Many have, first of all, looked at so-called impact measurement or impact evaluation, completely trying to understand the specific outputs and outcomes of a PCVE program. The problem is that we really don't know how to interpret these outcome measures. Also, we don't know how long to monitor these individuals. Should we watch these individuals 1, 5, 10, 20 years after they have completed the program? It is very, very difficult to actually legally and legitimately do that. Now, another set of evaluations looks at the process, what happens in between a client comes in and leaves the program, the so-called process evaluations. They are more focused on trying to find out if the program effectively uses its own resources, if it's well structured, if it has solid process models, a theory of change, if the staff is well trained, for example. Now, this does not necessarily mean that the program actually will achieve its goals, but we know that it essentially attempts that in the most serious and solid way. Another set of quality measures or evaluations have been introduced through the DARE project. We came up, based on previous research, with a specifically adapted structural integrity checklist. This checklist includes many factors. For example, the level of training of staff, Are there clearly stated program goals? Is there a standardized intake procedure for every client? Is there a clearly stated and communicated theory of change? Are there within the program specifically defined milestones for each client, for example? How is the case management process? How is the case filing process? All of these nuts and bolts of a de-radicalization or PCV program we listed in the toolkit and provided a checklist with definitions, with examples, positive and negative examples, with the aim to help policymakers and program designers to create highly adaptable, cutting-edge, high-quality programs from scratch, or improve existing programs and make better decisions where and how to improve these programs. We hope that this toolkit actually will help to inform the practitioner level PCVE programming landscape and policymakers to make better informed decision where to place their resources, what kind of programs to financially support, and how to quickly develop these programs from scratch if the need arises.